1800 level chess is a very advanced chess rating. If you have this rating, you're better than 99.9% of players on planet Earth. So, how do players get to 1800? They're very sharp with their openings, their tactics, which is move combinations and calculation, their basic levels of strategy and mating patterns, etc. They're very advanced and experienced chess players. They're no one to mess around with. So why aren't they higher than 1800? This comes down to the more nuanced part of chess, which makes sense because they're already advanced, and that's positional chess. The 1800 has a massive deficiency, I would say, in their positional knowledge compared to the higher levels. In this video, I'm going to show you not one, like I usually do, but 6 games. I'm showing a bigger sample size because this is a higher rating and there's more to delve into. So get a big tub of popcorn or some hot chocolate, or it's the summer, you won't get hot chocolate, whatever you have, and sit down, relax, because this is going to be a long but helpful video. Anyway, let's dive in. Let's play some chess. All right, let's get this party started. So first game is against the 1850-ish player. We have the Sicilian defense, closed variation. Closed because my opponent did not play d4 and opened the game up. He played d3. Okay, so notice how both players are developing their pieces. We don't neglect development. 1800 players aren't going to make basic mistakes like that. They've been around a long time. They've been around the block, and they know what they're doing. They are advanced chess players. They're no one to mess with. Except for me, I can mess with them. All right, so he plays d4 here, attacking the center. That's very good. Challenging the center, I should say. I take, and now I just take the knight, and he takes with the queen. So far, the game is even. I actually left the evaluation bar on the board here, so you can see that. So far, so good for both players here. He's piling up on my isolated pawn here. Now, isolated pawns aren't necessarily a bad thing. It's a trade-off. Because your pawn is isolated, you have more activity because there's less pawns in your way. So you have it's more of a dynamic position. However, it is a target for him to prey on, and he could try to pile up like he's doing right now and try to win the pawn. I attack the bishop. He moves out of the way, and I finish my development. Notice how both players finished their development. Okay. Now I'm starting to pile up on, obviously, h3, and my opponent doesn't defend it. Now, he's a strong player, so I'm assuming he saw that. There's just, he's actually able to ignore it. And I'm not really sure if that's such a good idea, but that's what he did. So he traded rooks, and now he took the pawn on d5. And this is what I was talking about with 1800s. It's not tactical chess. So their openings are good. They know their opening theory. They're developing. They're playing. They're putting their pieces on the right squares for the most part, and they have very sharp tactics. You're probably not going to trick them with the tactic, or it's not going to happen very often. Meaning move combinations, right? What it is strategic errors, and you'll see by the bar, the eval bar on the side of the board. This is a blunder. It's not a blunder for a tactical necessarily reason. Like if I take here, he's totally fine. Knight takes knight, everything's fine. But what happened here is he should have been concerned about my knight coming to g4. The reason why 1800s aren't stronger is they don't really appreciate squares. So they're seeing pieces, the dynamic between the pieces and how they affect each other, but they're not really looking at key squares as much. The really what's going on here is he saw he can get a pawn, and that's why I guess he went to this variation, but he should be worried about my knight coming to g4 because the knight and queen are unstoppable. So after he took here, I sank my knight into g4, and now we have some serious problems. And my opponent actually resigned here. Now, the reason why he resigned here is now it's too late. It doesn't matter how good you are at tactics. The best move here is queen takes g4, and you lose your queen. Now, why is that? Well, if he plays knight f5, I just throw in a check, and I throw in another check, and we have checkmate. That's just one of the variations, but this is already a lost position. Like I said, the best move is queen takes g4. So there you have it. Let's go to another game here. We have another 1800, and in this position, this kind of transposed into sort of like a semi-Slav or a French, but now he plays f5. So the move here, that's already he made a strategic error. He played f5. F5 here in this position is so unnecessary. It's not losing, but he's on the cusp of losing already. So F5 is again, it's not a tactical mistake because pawn takes pawn. If I took over here, that's pawn takes pawn. He gets his knight in. It's more of a strategic. It's a positional mistake. It's more of a nuanced move. So the 1800 doesn't appreciate positional chess as much or see the nuances in chess as well as a higher rated player. So if you're wondering why 1800s lose, because they're probably invincible to most of you, they're probably basically a grandmaster to most of you, most chess players out there. Well, it's more of the micro part of chess, more the nuanced part of chess, and that's positional chess. Okay, but my opponent, as you see, he's developing, he's doing well here, but this move is a little weakening early on in the game. And now he plays h6. That's another weakening move. Now the light squares are completely weak. You don't want to do stuff like this. My queen could slide over, come in here. My knight can jump in the game. Just creating way too many holes for himself unnecessarily. He attacks my bishop here and brings his knight back. Now in this game, even though I was better, you'll see at this point of the game, I make a blunder. So I blundered. It happens. It happens. But I came back to win, spoiler alert, because of unnecessary positional moves and choices in the game that my opponent played. So the reason why this is bad is because my queen is trapped. So I had to find a way to not lose my queen, because any square loses the queen. So I found this tricky move, bishop h4. And now I lose a piece here, but at least I don't lose a queen. So now after he takes my queen, I take his queen. Look at me. But I'm still down a piece. Now my opponent should definitely win here. He's 1800. His tactics are sharp. He actually caught me with something I didn't see. Caught me off guard, even though he played some, slightly suspicious moves earlier. And now he's winning again. So here now I'm just in desperado mode. I'm in desperation mode. When you're losing in chess, this is the time to get creative, a little crazy maybe, and a little desperate. So I sack another piece to get 2 pawns, but again, to get my knight, to sink my knight into d6, I want my knight on good squares. This is positional chess, and this is from a absolutely losing position. This is an absolutely losing position for me. But I'm still looking to get my pieces on good squares. I appreciate the value of a knight on d6, and I don't think my opponent appreciates it as much. Now, my opponent should be just trading down pieces, slowing the game down, making the game as boring as possible, and I should be trying to make the game crazy, but my opponent goes into an unnecessary tactical variation, which shows how good he is with tactics and how an 1800 player is with tactics, but it was a wrong choice in doing so. You shouldn't have went into a calculation at all in this position, and I'll explain in a little bit. So he opens up the H file with check. I bring my knight back. Now we're just dancing around each other. I'm just waiting for him to hopefully make a mistake. I throw in a check, and you would think he would take my rook here. Now he doesn't take my rook, he blocks, which looks like a blunder, and it is, but not for the reason you think. So he just gives up a rook, which you're probably saying, oh, he blundered. But that's not really what's going on here. He threw in a check first, and then I move out of the way. He throws in another check. I take his knight, and then he throws in another check, and he's going to get my rook. But he already gave up too much material. He gave up the knight on the way to do this, so it's highly unnecessary. So he saw almost because he's a talented chess player, he saw this tactical variation that just didn't work. It almost worked, but it didn't. And not only that, now I have a pass pawn, a great knight, and a rook pinning his bishop on the last rank. So just by putting your pieces on good squares, my opponent had to resign after this move, because now after this, I have rook e8 checkmate. Because my pieces are on good squares, so I just waited for my opponent to blunder, and then I took advantage of it. So, okay, the next game, this is an extreme example of positional chess. So you'll see this game is very quick. This game ends in a few moves, actually. So we have a Sicilian defense, both developing, right? He trades on c6, that's fine. I castle at least. I play d5, attacking or challenging the center. And after he pushes the pawn here, that's already a strategic mistake, but not too bad. I come back and I come to g4 and attack the pawn. Now, he defends the pawn poorly. Now, this is, again, positional chess. He should just castle here. And if I take this, he has some tactics. But, again, it's more of a positional idea that because he's so developed here, I shouldn't be able to take this pawn. He should be fine. It's more of a positional, nuanced idea than it is a tactical idea. Basically, it should be your intuition to see that that's just not an accurate move in this position. You shouldn't necessarily have to calculate that out if you're an experienced player. But he played f4, which is very committal. It definitely defends the pawn, but at what cost? Well, he weakened his pawns on the potential king side. He weakened this diagonal, and in the opening where we want to move our pieces, he's moving pawns now. Too many pawn moves are bad because they take away time where we can be moving our pieces, and therefore that can get us into trouble. So I attack the knight. Now, why do I do this? This is positional chess. So again, I want my knight in this beautiful square right here, and I would like it anchored by a pawn. So for that reason, my pawn needs to be here. I also need to get rid of this bishop because it covers dark squares. So what do I do here? I push, and after the knight moves, you guessed it, I take the bishop. And now there's nothing stopping me from getting my knight in here. And I already have arguably a winning position just from my positional knowledge over my opponent. And now all my opponent has to do is just make a slight error here, and all the tactics are going to be flying in my direction for my advantage. Already this is a mistake. I throw in a check, and the king should block with the queen here. I understand why he didn't, because he's dropping material. He can't take back. He's pinned. So he came up with the king, but after bishop g4, there's nothing he can do. The only move is to block with the queen, which loses the queen. So in this position, my opponent resigned. And it all came back from allowing me to put my knight on d6. And that came from playing f4. Notice this f pawn was guarding d3. When you push a pawn, you can't go back and defend the squares. You create weaknesses. A good player is going to see that and say, hey, I need a pawn here to anchor my knight. I just got to get rid of this dark square bishop. Boom. And all of a sudden, this happens, and this is a very bad situation for white. Okay, anyway, let's go on to the next game, the fourth game. The fourth game is, we're playing against the 1800 from Australia. And we have a very basic position here. This is the Italian game, basically. And here's the mistake here. My opponent takes on f3. Now, the computer might not say this is a mistake. The computer might be like, it's okay. But this is not a good way to play chess. I'm taking here. Now, the reason why this is a mistake to take the knight, in my opinion, is because this opens up the file to the king, right? So the king's already committed here because the king castled kingside. So now I have an open lane of attack with my rook. I castle queenside, and I'm just going to have a lot of pressure. Even though we're both equal in this position, if you look at the evaluation bar, I have an incredibly easy attacking position to play. He has a very tough position to play. So any human experienced chess player is going to take white in this position because it's an easier position to play. So for all practical purposes, white is better here. Okay, so I take here and attack the pawn. Okay, this makes him to cause another weakness. Notice how pawns create weaknesses. This pawn can never go backwards and guard this square, so these squares are weak. I castle, and I take over the g-file. Now my opponent tries to come for a queenside attack, which is what he should do. I take, and I put my knight on f4. So again, because I have such a fast attack, I'm just trading pieces and going for tempo here. My opponent moves out of the way. I start putting pressure on the bishop and the g7 square, and now I throw in a little tactic. Notice how tactics are going to work for you when you have a better position or easier position to play. Here, my opponent took back, but now I pin him with this rook, so I'm going to get material back. And after I take here I actually made a mistake. I took the rook. Definitely should just play queen g5, and I'm just just winning. So here I was in time pressure, actually. So I took here, made a mistake, and he made a mistake too. He attacked my rook, and then he figured, again, he's attacking my rook and taking away my flight square for the king. Now, if he just throws in a check, it's pretty much checkmate, or at least I have to give up my queen. Game over. I'll show you what he should have done. He should have did it backwards, though. He should have did this check first, then check, winning the rook. That's more forcing. There's nothing I can do about that. That's why this move is a blunder for me. However, after this move, I have a defensive resource. I actually take on h7, and I turn the tables on him. And the reason why that's good is because after he takes, which he has no choice but to take, now his king lands into a forking square, and now my opponent had to resign here. Okay, so let's see the next game. Again, that game was it was easy for me to get an attacking position because he gave me an open G file to his king by taking my knight. So that was the strategic or positional mistake there. Here we have the Carol Khan. I'm playing against the 1800 player from Japan. Now, this is the one game in the video where you can argue this is a tactical mistake. It is technically a tactical mistake, but I would argue there's also a positional element to it. That's why I decided to keep this for the video. So again, we're both playing theoretically good moves. This is all theory, the main line of the Carol Khan. If you don't believe me, you can go check it out. This is. So point being, 1800 level players are playing their openings well, or they should be for the most part. Okay, so I start attacking on the queen side because we have kings of opposite sides of the board castled. I talk about this all the time. We have to throw the pawns at each other. That's the strategy. He should also conversely be doing the same thing. However, he goes for this pawn. Now, this is, in my opinion, this is a tactical mistake. It's a hard tactic to see, though. But, I mean, strategically, you should not be putting your knight on the side of the board, and it's not defended. It's a bad idea. I already have tension on it, and it's only defended by the queen. This is just a bad one, but I decided to keep this in the game. So if you take the knight here, you're not doing anything but just bringing his queen over to the king side, helping him attack you and helping him checkmate you, which is what a lot of you guys do, and which is why a lot of you guys lose at chess. No offense, just calling what I see. Anyway, so instead of bringing his queen over to me, I attack the queen and keep the tension. The queen's the only thing that's defending the knight. So if I can dislodge the queen from this rank right here, my next move is just to win a knight. He moves here, the only square where he's still defending the knight, and now I just play c4, and now there's no square he has that can defend the knight. In fact, the only square the queen can go to where it doesn't get captured is d6, and that just gives away the knight here, and my opponent resigned. Okay. Anyway, this is the 6th game right here, and we're playing against 1800 from Switzerland. So in this game, we have the semi-Slav, and my opponent pins my knight. I break the pin, and notice how I don't take until my opponent develops his bishop. Therefore, when he does take back, it took him 2 moves or 2 tempos to take instead of taking it right away when his bishop is here so he can develop and capture at the same time. So these little positional nuance moves are important. My opponent takes the center. This is a very good idea. I challenge the center. Also a good idea. I take and he takes. Now here I played h6 to attack the bishop. You might be wondering why I didn't play this. That would be because it's a huge blunder, because after he takes back, he's attacking my queen and my bishop twice. So after I move my queen somewhere, even if I try to defend my bishop, it doesn't work. I'm actually getting crushed here. So that's why you don't do stuff like that. Anyway, I play h6. My opponent moves out of the way. I bring my other knight into the game, and I attack my opponent's bishop. Again, this is positional chess, but this is basic positional chess. You want to get rid of the bishop pair, and I want to keep the bishop pair, because the bishop pair is an advantage if your opponent doesn't have it. Okay, I want to take, but I'm also concerned about the rook being lined up with my queen. Discovered attacks are one of the most underrated tactics in chess. They're super powerful, so I just get out of the way. Okay, he takes my pawn here, so he's up a pawn, so he's doing well. He's actually better here. As you can see, actually he's winning here. He brings his knight back, and now he loses his advantage. And then he takes back with the bishop. Again, our queens are lined up. I don't want to trade queens because I'm down material. I'm down a pawn, nothing crazy. But in this position, he attacks my queen. I bring it back. And here's the positional mistake that he made here. He played f3. Now, f3, it's not a huge mistake. You won't see the eval bar go crazy. But the game ends in a few moves, and it's because of this move. Now, you don't want to make moves in chess that, the computer says is technically, it's okay, not great. It's actually kind of bad, but not too bad. But it also makes your position really, really hard to play from a practical sense. f3 makes your position very difficult to play. It creates a huge weakness on this diagonal, and that's where your king is, so that's not good. So I play bishop c5. He blocks with his bishop, and now all of a sudden I play bishop h3, pinning his pawn. So now basically what's happening is he can't take because he'll be in check. I'm also threatening checkmate. If he takes the bishop here, we have checkmate. So he has to do something about that. His only move really to stop it is to play g3, which then gives me his rook. So I take the rook, and now I trade bishops with him. If he takes with the queen, he loses the rook, so he can't do that. So again, he's in a bad situation. So he takes with the king, and now I just attack the bishop. And after this move that he played, again, another weakening move, and now you'll really see he's in really big trouble. And this is a strategic error. This is a positional mistake. He should have just brought his bishop back here and kept his pawns from moving any further. You don't want to move pawns in front of your king, but instead he decided to get tricky and throw in an in-between move, which leaves this square open. And now after knight g4, my opponent actually resigns here. And why did he resign? Because let's say he comes here. Now when I come to c5, I'm going to win the bishop because I have the queen and rook here. And if he comes back, let's say here, I'm going to throw in this move check, which would win the queen, but my queen's attacked too, let's remember. And after his king moves, now I go queen c5. I'm attacking his queen and the bishop, not once and twice, but now 3 times. This is ridiculous. Whatever he does here, he's in a lot of trouble. So there you have it. Well, I hope you guys found that video helpful. If you did, check out this video, how to get to 2,000 in chess. And if you haven't already subscribed, please do. It does help out the channel, and you won't miss any further content. Now get out of here, go play some chess.